Welcome to this video summary of Don't Believe Everything You Think by Joseph Nguyen. Have you ever found yourself feeling stuck in negative thought patterns, unable to escape the cycle of worry, anxiety, or self-doubt? If so, you're not alone. Our thoughts have a powerful influence on our emotions, and when we get caught up in unhelpful or distorted thinking, it can lead to unnecessary suffering. In this book, Joseph Nguyen explores the connection between our thoughts and our emotions, and offers practical tools and techniques to help us break free from negative thinking patterns. Drawing on mindfulness, cognitive behavioral therapy, and Buddhist philosophy, this video will show you how to become more aware of our thoughts, question their validity, and ultimately reduce our suffering. If you're looking to overcome anxiety, boost your self-esteem, or simply live a more mindful and peaceful life, this video will offer valuable insights and strategies to help you along the way. And if you enjoy this video, be sure to subscribe to our channel for weekly amazing self-help videos like this one. So, let's dive in and explore the key takeaways from Don't Believe Everything You Think. People have a hard time letting go of their suffering. Out of a fear of the unknown, they prefer suffering that is familiar. Thich Nhat Hanh. When we talk about suffering, we mean emotional and psychological pain, the kind of pain that comes from our thoughts and feelings, rather than physical pain. Although we all experience pain in our lives, suffering is actually optional. That means we have a choice in how we react to the things that happen to us. We can either choose to suffer or choose not to. To understand it better, we use an example of two arrows. The first arrow represents physical pain that we can't control, while the second arrow represents emotional pain that comes from our reaction to the first arrow. The second arrow is the one we can control, so we can choose whether or not to suffer from it. It can be difficult to choose not to suffer. Joseph Nguyen talks about his own journey of trying different methods to alleviate his own suffering. He tried things like changing his habits, meditating, and going to therapy, but he still felt anxious, fearful, unfulfilled, and heavy every day. It wasn't until he discovered how the mind works and how our experiences are created that he was able to stop his own suffering. Suffering is a part of life and can happen to anyone. It could be caused by different things like losing a loved one, going through a tough breakup, or facing a setback in your career. While we can't always control what happens to us, we can control our reactions to those events. This means that even though we may experience pain or difficulty, we don't have to suffer emotionally and mentally. One way to learn to stop suffering is by understanding that there are two arrows in life. The first arrow represents physical pain that is inevitable, like getting hurt or sick. The second arrow represents emotional pain, which is our reaction to the physical pain. This emotional pain is what leads to suffering, and it is optional. We can choose how we react to the physical pain and try not to add more emotional pain on top of it. By changing the way we think about and react to situations, we can lessen the amount of suffering we experience in our lives. It's important to remember that this is a journey and it may take time to learn and implement these changes. With practice and perseverance, we can reduce our suffering and find more peace and happiness in our lives. One who looks around him is intelligent. One who looks within him is wise. In this chapter, the author is explaining that we live in a world of thoughts and perceptions, not just reality. Every person has their own unique way of looking at things and experiencing the world. Even though two people might be in the same place and experiencing the same thing, they could have completely different feelings and perceptions of what's happening. For example, if you ask 100 people what money means to them, you'll get 100 different answers because each person has their own unique perception of what money represents to them. Similarly, if you ask 100 people what they think of a particular politician, you'll get 100 different answers because each person has their own unique thoughts and perceptions of that person. The author explains that the meaning or thinking we give to an event is what ultimately determines how we feel about it. This meaning or thinking is the filter through which we see life from then on. Because of this, we live through our perception of reality, not just in reality itself. reality is simply that an event happened, without any meaning or interpretation attached to it. The idea that our thoughts create our reality is not a new concept, but it can be difficult to fully grasp and accept. We often believe that our experiences and emotions are a direct result of external events, and we may feel powerless to change them. But the truth is that we have the power to choose our thoughts and, in turn, change our reality. This doesn't mean that we should deny or ignore the challenges and difficulties that we face in life. It simply means that we can choose to respond to them in a different way. Instead of allowing our negative thoughts to spiral out of control and dictate our emotions, we can learn to observe them without judgment and choose a more positive perspective. It's important to note that changing our thoughts is not always easy, and it takes time and practice. We may need to seek out support and guidance from others, such as a therapist or mentor, to help us navigate this process. But with patience and persistence, we can begin to shift our thinking and create a more positive and fulfilling experience of life. We can learn to find joy and gratitude in the present moment, even amidst difficult circumstances, and cultivate a sense of inner peace and contentment that is not dependent on external factors. In essence, by recognizing the power of our thoughts and taking control of them, we can transform our lives from the inside out. We can experience true happiness, not as a fleeting emotion, but as a state of being that is always accessible to us, no matter what is happening around us. A Young Monk and the Empty Boat is a Zen tale about a young monk who struggled with meditation because he became easily distracted and irritated by the sounds and movements around him. His mentor advised him not to become angry with things that disturbed him, but the young monk couldn't find a peaceful place to meditate until he discovered a spot in the middle of a nearby lake. However, he became angry again when he saw an empty boat approaching him and realized that it had hit his boat. He realized that his anger wasn't caused by external factors but by his own reaction to them. The young monk then returned to the monastery and continued to meditate peacefully, treating all disturbances as the empty boat. The young monk realized that his anger was not caused by external factors but rather by his own reaction to them. He understood that he had been letting his thoughts control his emotions, and that it was his own thinking that was causing his suffering. From that moment on, the young monk practiced mindfulness and awareness. He focused on his breath and observed his thoughts and emotions without judgment. Whenever he felt angry or frustrated, he reminded himself that it was his own reaction that was causing his suffering, and that he had the power to change it. As he continued to practice, the young monk became more and more peaceful. He no longer let external factors control his emotions, and he found that he could remain calm and centered no matter what was happening around him. The other monks in the monastery noticed the change in him and began to ask him how he had become so calm and peaceful. The young monk shared his experience and taught them how to practice mindfulness and awareness, and soon the whole monastery was filled with a sense of peace and tranquility. The story of the young monk and the empty boat is a powerful reminder that our thoughts and reactions are within our control. It shows us that we can choose how we respond to the world around us, and that by practicing mindfulness and awareness, we can find peace and happiness in even the most challenging situations. I think, and think, and think. I've thought myself out of happiness 1,000,000 times, but never once into it. Jonathan Safran 4. As humans, we possess an incredible ability to think and reason. It is a defining characteristic of our species that has allowed us to accomplish remarkable feats throughout history, from inventing tools and technologies to creating complex societies and cultures. However, despite its numerous benefits, thinking can also be a source of suffering and discontent. Our minds are highly evolved to help us survive in a world filled with potential dangers and threats. They constantly scan our environment for any signs of harm and use our past experiences to create hypothetical scenarios that could lead to danger. This is a valuable function, as it allows us to respond quickly to potential threats and avoid harm. However, This constant vigilance can also lead to anxiety, fear, and other negative emotions that can diminish our overall quality of life. When our minds become fixated on potential dangers, we can become trapped in a state of fight or flight, always on edge and ready to react. In order to thrive and find true fulfillment, we need to move beyond our minds and tap into something greater. Our consciousness, our soul, is the key to finding peace, love, and joy in our lives. When we tune into this deeper part of ourselves, we can let go of the constant worry and anxiety that our minds create and find a sense of peace and contentment. This is not to say that thinking is bad or that we should try to eliminate it altogether. Our minds are valuable tools that allow us to make sense of the world around us and solve complex problems. However, we need to recognize that our minds are not the only aspect of ourselves and that there is much more to our experience of life than just what we think. By letting go of our attachment to our thoughts and tuning into our deeper selves, we can experience a greater sense of freedom, happiness, and fulfillment. We can learn to live in the present moment, appreciate the beauty and wonder of life, and connect with the world around us in a deeper and more meaningful way. Stop thinking and end your problems. Lao Tzu. In this chapter, we will discuss the difference between thoughts and thinking. Thoughts are the raw materials that our minds use to create everything we experience in the world. Without thoughts, we cannot experience anything. It's important to note that thoughts are not something we actively do, but rather something we have. They come into our minds effortlessly and uncontrollably, and we cannot always control what thoughts pop into our minds. Thinking, on the other hand, is the act of engaging with our thoughts. It takes a significant amount of energy, effort, and willpower to think about our thoughts. When we actively engage with the thoughts in our minds, we are thinking. However, we don't have to engage with every thought that comes into our minds. Thinking is the root cause of all our psychological suffering. When we engage with negative thoughts, we can spiral into negative thinking patterns that can cause us to feel anxious, depressed, or stressed. However, positive thoughts, or thoughts that make us feel good, are not the result of thinking. They are generated by our natural state of peace, love, and joy. Positive thoughts are a byproduct of a state of being, not a state of thinking. Now think about your dream amount of money you want to make in a year. This is a simple question that doesn't require any effort or willpower, so a thought, an answer to the question, pops up in the reader's mind easily and effortlessly. Now try to engage with that thought by thinking about it, which requires more energy, effort, and willpower. When you start to think about your answer, you may begin to have all sorts of other thoughts and beliefs that come up, such as, "There's no way I can make that much money," or, "I don't know how to make that much money." These additional thoughts are what we refer to as thinking, which is the active engagement with our thoughts. This type of thinking can often lead to negative feelings and psychological suffering, which is why it's important to understand the difference between thoughts and thinking and to learn how to manage our thoughts effectively. The experiment is designed to show the reader the difference between thoughts and thinking. The initial thought of the dream amount of money likely came easily and effortlessly, but once you were asked to think about it, your thoughts may have spiraled into negative thinking patterns that made them feel bad. In conclusion, understanding the difference between thoughts and thinking is crucial for improving our mental health and well-being. By recognizing that we don't have to engage with every thought that comes into our minds, we can avoid negative thinking patterns and cultivate a more positive mindset. Thoughts are not inherently bad and that they are the raw materials from which we create in the world. However, it also points out that the moment we begin to think about our thoughts is when we start to experience emotional turmoil. For instance, when we think about how much money we want to make, the initial thought of the amount may not cause any emotional distress. In fact, it may even feel exciting and empowering. However, as soon as we begin to think about that thought and start to judge it or criticize it, we may start to experience negative emotions like self-doubt, unworthiness, anxiety, anger, or guilt. Thinking is the root of all suffering because when we start to think about our thoughts, we project our limiting beliefs, judgments, criticisms, programming, and conditioning onto them. We start to create reasons why we can't do something or why we shouldn't want it, and this leads to negative emotions. It is not necessary to think about our thoughts or to judge them. Instead, we should focus on the initial thought that popped into our minds and use it as a positive energy to create what we want. The author also points out that thoughts create, but thinking destroys. When we allow our thoughts to flow freely without judgment or criticism, we can experience positive emotions and feel lighter, more alive, and more intuitive. Our feelings and emotions can be used as an internal radar to tell us whether we're thinking too much or not. If we're having a lot of negative emotions, it's a sign that we're thinking too much and need to shift our focus back to our initial positive thought. This concludes that we are naturally built for success and that by controlling our thoughts and emotions, we can achieve our goals and create the life we want. We are ever only one thought away from peace, love, and joy, which come from a state of no thought. Dicken Bettinger. Positive emotions can arise spontaneously without any conscious effort or specific thought patterns. We can experience joy, love, and peace just by being present in the moment and allowing ourselves to feel the sensations in our body. In fact, trying to force ourselves to think positively in order to feel positive emotions can often be counterproductive. When we are constantly monitoring our thoughts and trying to change them, we can create more stress and anxiety for ourselves. Instead, a more effective approach is to cultivate a sense of mindfulness and present moment awareness. By simply observing our thoughts and feelings without judgment, we can create a space for positive emotions to naturally arise. Of course, this is not to say that our thoughts don't have an impact on our emotions. Negative thought patterns can certainly lead to negative emotions. However, it's important to recognize that our thoughts are not the only factor at play. Our emotions can also be influenced by our physical sensations, our environment, and our past experiences. By recognizing that we can feel positive emotions without actively trying to think positively, we can cultivate a more relaxed and open approach to our inner experience. We can learn to trust that positive emotions will arise naturally when we allow ourselves to be fully present in the moment. Recall a time when you felt the most joy and love you've ever felt in your life and feel the feelings that you felt at that time as much as you can for at least 30 seconds. What kinds of thoughts were going through your mind at that peak moment when you felt the most joy and love? I'm not asking what you were doing at the time, but what thoughts were going through your head at that exact moment. For many people that answer this, they realize that they didn't have any thoughts during that exact moment. For others, they say that the thought was that they were so grateful or happy. For those that answered that they had the thought that they were grateful, did you feel that joy and love before you had that thought or after? Take 10 to 15 seconds to answer that question before moving on. What insights and epiphanies did you have? This exercise is meant to illustrate the idea that positive emotions do not necessarily come from positive thoughts. Instead, positive emotions can arise when we are not thinking at all or when we are experiencing a sense of gratitude or appreciation, even without conscious thoughts. By becoming aware of this, we can begin to cultivate positive emotions by simply being present in the moment and focusing on gratitude and appreciation. Positive emotions such as joy, love, and peace are our natural state of being, and we do not need to think or have thoughts to feel them. Thinking can take us away from our natural state of being and cause negative emotions like stress, anxiety, fear, and self-consciousness. To illustrate this point, the author invites readers to recall their experiences of extreme stress or anxiety and notice how much thinking was going on at the time. They then ask readers to recall moments of happiness and joy and see how much thinking was happening then. The author asserts that the intensity of the positive emotion we feel is inversely proportional to the amount of thinking we are doing in the moment. In other words, the less thinking we have going on, the stronger the positive emotion we feel in the present. The author also presents an analogy of a speedometer to describe the relationship between our thinking and our emotional state. They suggest that the more thinking we have going on, the higher the thought-o-meter goes, and if we have enough thinking going on, it'll go into the red zone, leading to extreme stress, frustration, burnout, and anger. The main point is, we do not have to think positive thoughts to experience positive emotions because they are our natural state of being. Negative emotions are caused by thinking, not the content of our thoughts. Therefore, it is not about what we're thinking about that is causing us suffering, but rather that we're thinking. The less thinking we have, the more space we create for positive emotions to naturally surface. If the only thing people learned was not to be afraid of their experience, that alone would change the world. Sydney Banks. The three principles that are responsible for creating the human experience: universal mind, consciousness, and thought. These principles work together to allow individuals to experience everything in life, and without any of them, experiences would not be possible. The principles were discovered by Sydney Banks and provide a way for individuals to understand how to alleviate their suffering and create from source. By understanding these principles, individuals can gain insight into the workings of their mind and consciousness, and use that understanding to create a more positive and fulfilling life experience. Universal mind. Universal mind is the intelligence behind all living things. It is the life force and energy that is in all things, and it is what allows everything to function properly without us having to manually control it. The universal mind is the source of all creation, and it is where thoughts come from. It is also what connects all things in the universe. The universal mind is often referred to by different names, such as God, infinite intelligence, the quantum field, source, and others. When we are connected to the universal mind, we feel whole, fulfilled, and inspired. However, when we begin to think from the perspective of the ego, we block the flow of the universal mind, and we begin to feel separated, frustrated, lonely, angry, resentful, sad, depressed, and fearful. Universal consciousness. Universal consciousness is the collective consciousness of all things. It is what allows us to be aware that we exist and aware of our thoughts. Without universal consciousness, we wouldn't be able to experience anything. Our five senses would have no use because there's nothing to be aware of. This is what brings things to life and makes them perceivable to us. Universal consciousness allows us to connect with others, and it is what allows us to feel empathy and compassion for others. Universal thought. Universal thought is the raw material of the universe from which we can create from. It is our ability to think and create form from the energy of the universal mind. Our thoughts are what shape our reality, and it is through our thoughts that we can create anything we desire. Universal thought is like the DVD that contains all the information for us to be able to watch the movie on the TV. The TV and DVD player is like consciousness. It allows us to have a mechanism to bring the information on the DVD to life for us to be able to watch and experience the movie. The electricity that's needed to power the DVD player and TV is like universal mind in the sense that it is the invisible energy/force that connects and powers all things. It is the source from which everything can work and function. A crowded mind leaves no space for a peaceful heart. Christine Evangela. In Chapter 7, the author discusses the root cause of human suffering, which is thinking. However, the question arises, how do we stop thinking? The author shares a Zen parable about heaven and hell to illustrate this concept. Heaven and Hell, a Zen parable. A tough, brawny samurai once approached a Zen master who was deep in meditation. Impatient and discourteous, the samurai demanded in his husky voice so accustomed to forceful yelling, "Tell me the nature of heaven and hell." The Zen master opened his eyes, looked the samurai in the face, and replied with a certain scorn, "Why should I answer to a shabby, disgusting, despondent slob like you? A worm like you, do you think I should tell you anything? I can't stand you. Get out of my sight. I have no time for silly questions." The samurai could not bear these insults. Consumed by rage, he drew his sword and raised it to sever the master's head at once. Looking straight into the samurai's eyes, the Zen master tenderly declared, "That's hell." The samurai froze. He immediately understood that anger had him in its grip. His mind had just created his own hell, one filled with resentment, hatred, self-defense, and fury. He realized that he was so deep in his torment that he was ready to kill somebody. The samurai's eyes filled with tears. Setting his sword aside, he put his palms together and obsequiously bowed in gratitude for this insight. The Zen master gently acknowledged with a delicate smile, "And that's heaven." This parable highlights the importance of awareness of our thoughts and emotions. The samurai was able to recognize that his anger was causing him suffering and that he had the power to change it. Similarly, we can also become aware of our negative thought patterns and take steps to change them. The author suggests that we can stop thinking by becoming present and mindful of the present moment. This can be achieved through practices like meditation, yoga, or simply taking deep breaths and focusing on the present moment. By doing so, we can break free from the grip of our thoughts and experience peace and tranquility. It is not possible to completely stop thinking, but it is possible to reduce the time spent thinking. By reducing the amount of time spent thinking, we can reach a point where we spend most of our day in a state of non-thinking and experience a sense of peace and bliss. However, the goal is not to stop all thoughts in general, but to minimize the thinking about those thoughts that emerge. Becoming aware of our thinking is the key to minimizing it. By recognizing that thinking is the root cause of our suffering, we become detached from it and allow it to settle and pass. This process takes almost no effort and is done through pure presence in the moment. The author uses the analogy of a bowl of cloudy water to explain how our minds work. If we let our thinking sit without disturbing it, the thinking will settle down on its own, and our minds will become free from thinking. In the same way, the more we fight our thinking, the more it amplifies negative emotions and worsens the situation. It is important to note that it is okay to fluctuate between thinking and non-thinking, and it is normal to do so. We cannot control or prevent the oscillation between thinking and non-thinking, but we can minimize the time spent thinking and create more moments of joy, peace, passion, and love. Ultimately, true peace comes from knowing that we always have a state of pure peace, love, and fulfillment underneath any thinking that we may have at any given moment. This state is always present, and we are never more than one moment away from remembering it. The key is to become aware of our thinking and to allow it to settle on its own without fighting it. Anxiety is thought without control. Flow is control without thought. James Clear. In this chapter, the author explores the idea that humans are able to perform at their best when they are in a state of non-thinking, or flow. When someone is fully engaged in an activity and completely absorbed in the present moment, they are not consciously thinking about what they are doing. Rather, they are simply allowing their actions to flow naturally without being hindered by the limitations of their ego. This state of non-thinking is often referred to as mushin in Japanese culture. The author provides examples of peak performers such as professional athletes who describe being in the zone during competition, where they are completely focused on their actions without conscious thought. In this state, they are able to react instinctively and without hesitation based on their training and experience. The author suggests that when we begin to overthink and overanalyze our actions, we may hesitate, become reluctant, and experience doubt, insecurity, and fear. In other words, thinking can hinder our performance and limit our potential. The author encourages readers to try experiencing this state of non-thinking for themselves in order to gain insight and understanding. There are no limitations to the mind except those we acknowledge. Napoleon Hill. If our goals and dreams are coming from a place of ego, fear, lack, or comparison to others, then pursuing them will likely bring about suffering and dissatisfaction. However, if our goals and dreams come from a place of joy, inspiration, and love, then pursuing them can be a fulfilling and enriching experience. So, The key is not to stop having goals and dreams, but to examine where they are coming from and align them with our true selves. This means letting go of any attachment to a specific outcome or timeline and instead focusing on the present moment and taking inspired action towards our goals. Additionally, we can also shift our perspective from a focus on achieving external success to cultivating inner peace and contentment. When we prioritize our inner well-being, we can approach our goals with a sense of ease and detachment, knowing that our worth is not tied to the outcome. In conclusion, stopping thinking does not mean giving up on our goals and dreams. It simply means examining where they are coming from and aligning them with our true selves. By doing so, we can approach our goals with a sense of ease and detachment, knowing that our worth is not tied to the outcome. Creating goals out of inspiration. Creating goals out of inspiration is a completely different experience than creating goals out of desperation. When we feel inspired, we are driven by a deep sense of purpose and passion that comes from within. It feels like we are being called to create, to express ourselves and our unique gifts in the world. This sense of inspiration can come from many different sources, such as a personal experience, a conversation with someone, a book, a movie, or simply a moment of insight or intuition. When we are inspired, we are not driven by scarcity or lack, but by abundance and possibility. We feel like anything is possible and that we can achieve our goals with ease and grace. We are not burdened by self-doubt, imposter syndrome, or the feeling that we don't have enough time. Instead, we are motivated by a deep sense of joy, excitement, and fulfillment that comes from knowing that we are living our purpose and making a positive impact in the world. One of the most surprising things about creating goals out of inspiration is that we are not doing it for any external reason, such as money, fame, or status. We are doing it simply because we want to, because we feel compelled to create, and because it brings us joy and fulfillment. We are not using our goals as a means to an end, but as an end in themselves. In this sense, our goals become a reflection of who we are and what we value, rather than a way to escape or avoid something we don't want. When we create goals out of inspiration, we are also more likely to be creative, innovative, and visionary. We are not limited by our past experiences or by what we think is realistic or plausible in the moment. Instead, we are free to imagine and dream big, to explore new possibilities, and to take risks and try new things. This sense of creative freedom and possibility can be incredibly empowering and transformative, not only for ourselves but also for the world around us. The feeling of deep inspiration is an indescribable sensation that originates from a source beyond ourselves. This feeling is often referred to as divine inspiration because the ideas and visions that come to us are far grander than what we could have imagined or created on our own. It is a force that energizes and uplifts us, making us feel like we are on top of the world. In this state, we are filled with unconditional love, joy, and peace. We are free from analyzing, comparing, criticizing, judging, or rationalizing, and instead, we live, love, share, give, create, grow, and nourish. Everyone has experienced this feeling of inspiration, where they feel called to create something magnificent in the world. However, many of us tend to suppress this feeling as soon as we start thinking about it. We begin to doubt ourselves and rationalize why we cannot do it, leading us to cut off the source of inspiration and return to our mundane lives filled with doubt, anxiety, and frustration. But when we stop thinking and allow ourselves to be open to the universe's possibilities, we fall back into our true nature and begin to create goals and dreams out of inspiration rather than desperation. The universe sends us thoughts that lead us to divine inspiration, which results in groundbreaking creations and inventions that seemed impossible not too long ago. When we follow divine inspiration, we feel alive, whole, joy, love, peace, and fulfillment. It is important to note that we can only follow one calling at a time, either inspiration or desperation in the present moment. The two cannot coexist at the same time, but we can fluctuate between the two depending on how much thinking is going on. Therefore, it is crucial to recognize the power of divine inspiration and to allow ourselves to create something magnificent out of pure inspiration. We can tell if a goal or dream is created out of inspiration or desperation by paying attention to how the goal came to us, through thoughts or thinking, and how it feels energetically, light and energizing or heavy and draining. Goals created out of inspiration are driven by a sense of purpose and desire to create something magnificent in the world, while goals created out of desperation are typically means goals, driven by the desire to escape or achieve something else. Our minds have the incredible ability to imagine and create things that have never existed before. However, many of us limit ourselves by our thinking. We let our fears, doubts, and limiting beliefs get in the way of our creativity and potential. When we let go of these limitations and allow ourselves to dream without any restrictions, we open up a world of possibilities. We begin to see things in a new light and become more aware of our own potential. We start to believe that we can achieve anything we set our minds to, and this belief empowers us to take action towards our goals. Furthermore, when we allow ourselves to dream without limits, we tap into a creative force that is greater than ourselves. We connect with a universal energy that flows through all things and empowers us to bring our dreams into reality. In essence, a mind without limits is one that is open, creative, and free. It is a mind that sees beyond the boundaries of our current reality and envisions a new and better future. It is a mind that is fueled by inspiration rather than desperation, and one that is not afraid to take risks and pursue its deepest desires. So, when we open ourselves up to the limitless possibilities of our minds, we begin to see the world in a new light. We start to create new realities for ourselves, and in doing so, we inspire others to do the same. Ultimately, we realize that anything is possible when we believe in ourselves and the power of our dreams. The greatest power that mankind could ever achieve is the power of unconditional love. This is when people love with no limitations, conditions, or boundaries. Tony Green. It is important to recognize that experiencing peace, joy, love, and fulfillment is not the end goal. It is just the beginning of a new journey where you can channel your energy towards your goals and aspirations. However, it is important to create goals that are inspired and aligned with your true self rather than just focusing on goals out of desperation or external pressures. To move forward after experiencing peace, it is essential to stay present in the moment and practice mindfulness. You can use mindfulness techniques to help you stay focused on the present and prevent your thoughts from taking over. You can also use this newfound energy to focus on activities that bring you joy and fulfillment, such as pursuing hobbies, spending time with loved ones, or helping others. Remember that the ego or thinking will always try to regain control over your life, but you have the power to dismantle it by recognizing that your negative feelings come from your thoughts. By practicing mindfulness and staying focused on your inspired goals, you can continue to experience peace, joy, love, and fulfillment in your life. If you are new to meditation, mindfulness, and inner peace, find out more by watching our complete guide about miracles of mindfulness by Thich Nhat Hanh, the famous Vietnamese monk, by clicking the link in the I button. There is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. William Shakespeare. The idea that there is nothing inherently good or bad in life, but rather it is our thinking that creates these distinctions, is a powerful one. It reminds us that our judgments and evaluations are not objective or universal, but rather subjective and based on our own perceptions and beliefs. The analogy of the piano keys is a useful way to illustrate this point. Just as there are no inherently wrong keys on a piano, there are no inherently wrong decisions in life. Rather, it is our thinking that creates these distinctions and judgments. By letting go of our judgments and evaluations of right and wrong, we open ourselves up to new perspectives and experiences. We can deepen our understanding of the true nature of life and find love, joy, and peace in the present moment. It's important to note, however, that finding the truth is not always easy. We must be willing to look beyond our own perceptions and beliefs and seek out what is universally true for all conscious human beings. This requires a deep inner journey and a willingness to question our own assumptions and biases. When we are confronted with negative emotions, it is important to remember that these are a sign of misunderstanding. By becoming aware of our thinking and recognizing that it is the cause of our negative emotions, we can begin to let go of our judgments and return to a state of peace, love, and joy. The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. Albert Einstein. So, how do we tap into this inner GPS or intuition to know what to do without thinking? Here are some tips. Quiet your mind. In order to hear your intuition, you need to quiet your mind and create space for it to speak to you. This can be done through meditation, mindfulness, or any other activity that helps you relax and focus your attention. Trust yourself. Believe that you already know what to do and trust that your intuition will guide you in the right direction. Don't doubt yourself or second-guess your decisions. Pay attention to your body. Your intuition often speaks to you through physical sensations in your body. Pay attention to any feelings of tension or relaxation, butterflies in your stomach, or any other physical sensations that arise when you think about a particular decision. Practice. The more you practice listening to your intuition, the easier it becomes to recognize it and trust it. Start with small decisions and work your way up to bigger ones. Remember that your intuition is always available to you, but it's up to you to listen to it and trust it. When you do, you'll find that making decisions becomes effortless, and you'll feel a sense of peace and alignment with your true self. Have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. Steve Jobs. We can trust that the universe, God, infinite intelligence knows what is best for us and will guide us in the right direction if we simply let go and trust. This means that we need to let go of control and surrender to the present moment, allowing ourselves to be guided by our intuition. So, how can we follow our intuition and inner wisdom? Here are some practical steps. Quiet your mind through meditation or mindfulness practices. When our minds are cluttered with thoughts, it becomes difficult to hear our intuition. By quieting our minds, we create space for our intuition to speak to us. Listen to your body. Our bodies have a way of communicating with us through feelings and sensations. If something doesn't feel right, it's probably not in alignment with our intuition. On the other hand, if something feels exciting or energizing, it's likely our intuition telling us to move in that direction. Trust yourself. Many of us have been conditioned to seek validation from others or to doubt our own abilities. Trust that you have the inner wisdom necessary to guide you in the right direction. Take action. Our intuition can only guide us if we take action. Trust that the actions you take are leading you in the right direction, even if they don't make sense in the moment. Let go of attachment to outcomes. When we become attached to a specific outcome, we limit ourselves and our ability to receive guidance from our intuition. Instead, trust that the universe has your best interests in mind and is guiding you towards what is best for you, even if it may not be what you originally had in mind. By following these steps, we can tap into the power of our intuition and inner wisdom, allowing us to experience a greater sense of ease, joy, and abundance in our lives. Trusting in the universe and surrendering to the present moment can lead us to experiences and opportunities that we never could have imagined on our own. At its core, the idea is that we don't have to try to force everything to happen exactly the way we want it to. In fact, trying to do so can often lead to frustration, disappointment, and even suffering. This is because there are so many things in life that are completely outside of our control: other people's actions, natural disasters, economic fluctuations, and so on. No matter how hard we try, we simply cannot control everything. However, this doesn't mean that we should simply give up and stop trying to achieve our goals or improve our lives. Instead, it means that we need to shift our focus to what we can control: our own thoughts and emotions. When we realize that we don't have to control everything and try to force everything to happen our way, we become free from suffering, pain, and frustration. Instead, we can begin to fall into a state of non-thinking where things just seem to happen for us instead of to us. We begin to see that everything that has happened in our lives was perfectly placed there to help us become the exact person we are now, and that if anything were changed, we would not have what we do now. This realization can be incredibly freeing and empowering. Moreover, when we let go of the need to control everything and focus instead on our own thoughts and emotions, we begin to see that happiness and fulfillment come not from external circumstances, but from within. It's not about what we have or what we achieve, but how we feel inside that is the true measure of success, joy, and fulfillment. Of course, this doesn't mean that we should simply sit back and do nothing. We can still have goals and aspirations, and we can work towards them in a focused and intentional way. But we don't need to try to force everything to happen exactly as we want it to. Instead, we can trust in our own intuition and inner wisdom to guide us towards the best path for us. We can let go of the need to figure everything out in advance, and instead remain open to the infinite number of possibilities and opportunities that the universe presents to us. Today I make space for miracles. I recognize that it's not how big a miracle is that's important, but how much room I create for it. Kyle Gray. Creating space for miracles is an important practice in our lives. When we are constantly filled with old thoughts and ideas, it is difficult for new things to come into our lives. In order to create this space, we must stop our strenuous efforts to think and challenge our current way of thinking. It is in this space of nothingness that new thoughts and ideas can enter our minds and transform our lives. Rest and relaxation are also important in creating space for miracles. Just like athletes who need a period of rest after intense training to build muscle and become stronger, we too need a period of rest to rejuvenate our minds and bodies. It is during this rest period that everything we desire can manifest in our lives. Thomas Edison understood the importance of creating space for new thoughts to enter his mind. He would often sleep in his chair while holding steel balls in his hands. When he reached a deep enough stage of sleep, the balls would drop, waking him up with a solution to his problem. In conclusion, creating space for miracles is an important practice in our lives. It requires us to empty our minds of old thoughts and ideas, challenge our current way of thinking, and allow ourselves time for rest and relaxation. By doing so, we create a space where new thoughts and ideas can enter our minds, transforming our lives in ways we never thought possible. Creating space for miracles doesn't just mean taking a break or engaging in non-thinking activities. It also means letting go of limiting beliefs and doubts that block us from receiving the miracles we desire. Our thoughts and beliefs create our reality, and when we hold on to limiting beliefs, we close ourselves off to the infinite possibilities of the universe. Therefore, creating space for miracles requires us to cultivate a mindset of openness, trust, and faith. We must be willing to let go of our need for control and surrender to the flow of life. When we do this, we create an energetic space for miracles to occur, and we become a magnet for the experiences and opportunities that align with our desires. The key to creating space for miracles is to remember that we are not alone in this journey. We are supported by a loving universe that wants us to experience joy, abundance, and fulfillment. When we align our thoughts and actions with this truth, we tap into the infinite power of the universe, and miracles become not just possible but inevitable. So, as Kyle Gray says, let us make space for miracles in our lives. Let us trust that the universe has our back and that everything is working out for our highest good. Let us surrender to the flow of life and allow miracles to unfold in ways that are beyond our wildest dreams. And let us remember that we are powerful co-creators of our reality, capable of manifesting miracles in every area of our lives. Albert Einstein famously said that we can't solve problems with the same level of consciousness that created them. When Einstein was stuck on a problem, He would play the violin to create space in his mind and receive insights from the universe. We don't have to figure everything out on our own. With the correct understanding, we can also receive insights to any challenge we're facing. To receive divine downloads when facing a challenge, we can follow these steps. Become aware that our thinking is the root cause of negative emotions. Surrender manual thinking and have complete faith that our inner wisdom will give us the answer. Meet the challenge with love and magnify feelings of love, peace, and joy. This process may seem simple, but it's not always easy, and even spiritual masters struggle at times. What's important is what we do when we catch ourselves thinking again. If we remember that thinking is the root cause of suffering, we can free ourselves from it. Living in non-thinking can be a challenging yet transformative experience. In this chapter, we explore potential obstacles that may arise as you embark on this journey. It is common to feel uneasy or uncertain when embracing a new way of living. Our brain naturally seeks safety in the familiar, which can make the peace and serenity of non-thinking feel unfamiliar and uncomfortable. However, it is essential to have faith in the unknown and trust that the universe is working in our favor. By staying in a state of non-thinking, we can experience increased productivity, joy, and abundance. It is crucial to recognize that any feelings of discomfort or doubt are the result of our minds trying to lure us back into destructive thinking patterns. We must choose between the familiar pain and suffering or the unknown, where all possibilities exist. Ultimately, having faith in the unknown can lead to transformative growth and a fulfilling life. Potential obstacles to living in non-thinking. 1. Feeling unfamiliar with the state of peace and serenity. 2. Thinking that something is wrong because of feeling too happy and peaceful. 3. Feeling unproductive or lazier because of being in a state of non-thinking. 4. Fear of uncertainty. 5. Temptation to return to old patterns of familiar pain and suffering. Tips for overcoming potential obstacles. 1. Have faith that everything will be okay. 2. Trust that the universe is working for you, not against you. 3. Remember that there are no failures, only lessons and opportunities for growth. 4. Embrace the unknown, as it contains all possibilities. 5. Stay in the feeling of happiness, peace, and love, rather than giving in to the temptation to think again. When we talk about self-improvement, it's important to recognize that everyone has their own unique journey and timeline. There is no one-size-fits-all approach to personal growth and development, and it's okay if your progress looks different from someone else's. It's also important to be patient with yourself and acknowledge that change takes time. That being said, there are some general strategies that can be helpful for fostering personal growth. These might include things like setting goals, identifying limiting beliefs and thought patterns, practicing self-care and self-compassion, and seeking out learning opportunities. Ultimately, the key to personal growth is cultivating self-awareness and a willingness to examine and challenge our own beliefs and behaviors. This can be a difficult and uncomfortable process at times, but it is essential if we want to create meaningful and lasting change in our lives. So, if you're looking to improve yourself, I would encourage you to start by getting curious about your own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Ask yourself questions like, what do I really want? What beliefs am I holding on to that might be holding me back? How can I be kinder to myself? Then, start experimenting with different approaches to see what works best for you. Remember that progress is not always linear, and it's okay to stumble along the way. What's important is that you keep showing up and putting in the effort to become the best version of yourself. Always remember, your potential is limitless. Believe in yourself, stay determined, and keep pushing towards your goals. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe to our channel for weekly updates of motivational content to help you along your journey. Let's achieve greatness together.